Namaskar. Today, 21st February 2021, is the mother's 143rd anniversary, birth anniversary. I would like to pay my homage to her by going back in my lived memory and bathe in the sweetness of her presence. The best way would be to recollect, perhaps, some of the Mahavakyas that she had pronounced to help the aspiring souls for a higher spiritual living. I've here selected a few among the numberless advices that she had given to each one of us, the living souls on the path, sunlit path. Her path is not arduous or strenuous, because she, out of her own tapasya and grace and compassion, laid for all of us a yellow brick path for her children and her devotees, seeking to lead a meaningful life of spirituality. Speaking of the sunlit path, it reminds me of the story of Ganesha and Kartikeya. Most of you would know that. Once it seems Narad brought from Brahma a mango and gave it to Shiva. Shiva and Parvati didn't know to whom to give the mango because there's only one. To give it to Ganesha or to Kartikeya. Being in that puzzle, Shiva came out with a solution. He said, he called both the sons, Ganesha and Kartikeya, and he said, he gave them a bowl full of oil. And then he said, take 3 rounds of this world, and whoever comes first will be the winner. So the moment it was announced, Kartikeya sat on his peacock, his vehicle, and flew off in a jiffy. But poor Ganesha, his vehicle is only the mouse. It cannot go too fast. But what he did was he called Shiva and Parvati and he said, please sit down together on a seat. As soon as he sat, he quickly went round them 3 times. And then he said, give me the mango, I'm the winner. So they were puzzled. They said, how come we didn't even go around the world and you're the winner? Ganesha then said, you are my world. You and Parvati, you and mother and father are the world for which I live. That's the only true world. And Shiva was glad, happy to know, and he gave him the mango. So that's a beautiful story which tells us about the sunlit path, the importance of going round the mother and Sri Aurobindo and not do any kind of a tapasya, go around doing a big tapasya as was done by Kartikeya. Well, this brings us to the genesis and the purpose of the synthesis of yoga, in which Sri Aurobindo has given the major tenets of integral yoga. Now, I want to take you a little into the genesis. How was it started? Why was it written? But first of all, let us know what is the object that Sri Aurobindo had in front of him when he started on his own yoga. In a place he writes, the first object is to become one with God, to be divine and live a divine life is the first object of yoga, he writes. The second is to know God in himself and in ourselves and in everything. The third is to make ourselves one with the divine will. and to do in our life a divine work by means of the divine power using us as an instrument. The fourth object is to enjoy God in all beings, in all things, and in all that happens. Well, this was the object of his own personal yoga as practiced and achieved in his Saptachatustaya, the seven tetrads. He had noted the results of the process followed in his yoga, in his Saptachatustaya, and these notations were given later on in a book called, in a diary, in fact, called the Record of Yoga. Well, like all diaries, this record was to be a register of guidance from this and other sources. It was, he wrote on 18th November 1914, to include not only the details of what is accomplished and the lines of the accomplished that is being attempted, but also the record of experiences and the indications of the future movement. So you can see this, it was a very personal diary, giving the details of the accomplished, the lines of accomplishment and the process. So these later on have been published today as the Record of Yoga, Volume 1 and Volume 2. So it is these record of experiences noted in the Record of Yoga which forms ultimately the basis and substance of the synthesis of yoga. This is the thing that we have to note, that the synthesis of yoga is basically experiences and the process that Sri Aurobindo personally underwent during his tapasya from 1910 to 1920, or even a little bit earlier, it seems from 1905, whatever tapasya he did, all that was gathered and put, as we say, in a more logical manner. That's why, in fact, Sri Aurobindo himself writes, the synthesis of yoga was not meant to give a method for all to follow. Remember, that's a very crucial sentence. The synthesis of yoga, the book, was not meant to give a method for all to follow. Each side of the yoga was dealt with separately with all its possibilities and an indication as to how they meet, so that one starting from knowledge could realize karma and bhakti also, and so with each path. So we have this yoga of knowledge, yoga of works, and yoga of divine love. So he says he has analyzed and described them in greater details, separately with all the possibilities, to see that how one could go from knowledge to bhakti, or from bhakti to works, vice versa, whichever way. Then he writes, it was intended, the synthesis of yoga was intended, when the self-perfection was finished, to suggest a way in which all could be combined, but this was never written. So the fourth section, the yoga of self-perfection, he was wanting to finish that, and then he says to suggest a way in which all could be combined. But unfortunately, that was never done. In fact, he never completed it, as is understood by telling the mother, you will complete it when I've completed my yoga. So there is an indication that the synthesis of yoga as a book was not completed. And it also indicates there's something else to come, a real synthesis to follow. So that we could not see. So, but the thing is, what we are interested in is that all that he experienced during his record of yoga has been somehow put together, somehow in the sense rationally, logically, so that we could understand, we can understand at least You see, record of yoga is hieroglyphics. I mean, the short notes and the Sanskrit words, which are really results that we cannot understand. It is purely his personal notes. So, in the synthesis, which was started in 1914 in the journal The Arya, he put down his own experience in a logical, rational manner. So, in what I got from these notes in the book of the Synthesis of Yoga, to show us that how much of his own record of yoga was transferred to the synthesis. Look at this note. The system of 7 sets of 4 elements, Sapta Chatushtaya, evidently underlies the structure of part 4 of the synthesis of yoga. Part 4 is the yoga of self-perfection. The last and most general Chatushtaya, the Siddhi Chatushtaya, is taken up first in chapters 1 to 9. Chapters 11 to 18 correspond to the Shanti and Samatha Chatushtayas. The first 2 of 7 chapters, chapter 9, subchapter 19 to 25, and the complete chapter, the supramental time consciousness, correspond to the first 2 elements of the third or Vijnana Chatushtaya. By breaking off at this point, Sri Aurobindo left untreated the rest of the third and all of the fourth Chatushtayas. He had covered the 5th and 6th Chatushtaya to some degree in the rest of the synthesis, but undoubtedly intended to deal with them in more depth before concluding. A very small note, but sufficient to know that all the Sapta Chatushtayas, he tried to spread it out, explain it throughout the book, The Synthesis of Yoga, in some form or the other. So this is a clear indication that the synthesis of yoga is this very personal yoga. And what happens? In 1920, 21, or 22 around that time, the diary note, the record of yoga comes to an end. There was a reason for that. In 1920, the mother returned from Japan. And then Sri Aurobindo's yoga took a different turn altogether. He writes in a note to one of his disciples that the mother's coming changed all his theories, all that he had envisioned, all the concepts into a reality and a practicability. It was as if the beautifully carved idol of integral yoga came to life. The pranic energy and Shakti was breathed into the idol. The mother had become the very breath and soul of integral yoga. The entire focus got changed in the living incarnation of the Mahashakti. And our 4 aspects which were envisioned even in the record of yoga were to be experienced in the very physical frame of the mother. Thus, in 1926, there was a second shift. After the experience of the overmind, which happened, as all of us know, on 24th of November, with the descent of the overmind into Sri Aurobindo's subtle physical. At that time, after 1926, we have a marvelous little book, The Mother, which was written giving the very essence of integral yoga. But this essence, you can see the language, you can see how he's advising for those of us who would like to work for the mother, for those of us who would like to take up the integral yoga. And then not only he writes about that, he indicates very clearly that the mother is the center, is the goal, is the aim, is the link, is the bridge. Nothing can be done without her. The grace and the compassion and the force are the mother. And then all that we have to do as a personal effort, as we say, aspiration, rejection, surrender, etc., all that now are instructions. So there is a distinction between the synthesis of yoga, which was supposed to be Sri Aurobindo's own yoga, and now it turns, as soon as the mother becomes the center of his yoga, it changes the tonality of his own writing. It becomes simpler, straightforward, although it has a lot of content from the synthesis. It's now there is a different direction. All the time telling us that depend on the mother. She is the person to take you through. So you see, there is already a change that is changing towards the mother. So we see in 1920 there was a shift in his own personal yoga, and in 1926, with the writing of the book The Mother, the whole tenor of synthesis of yoga changes. And therefore we see that the details of the yoga of the synthesis were less emphasized. So we have a shift as if in Sri Aurobindo's own yoga. Own yoga means not his personal yoga, but what he is telling us to do. And this shift that lasted from 1920s, 2026 till 1950. So during this period, 1920 to 1950, almost 25, 30 years, we see in the ashram's history great stalwarts, great many yogis and sadhaks who closely followed the synthesis of yoga, and there they were having their guru, their master, their divine incarnations in front of them. So all this tapasya that was there in the synthesis, they were trying to put it into their life. It was difficult, no doubt. There are plenty of questions and doubts and debates. And that's why they could write to Mother Sri Aurobindo, and Sri Aurobindo would answer them endlessly, untiringly, answering all of them, most of them. And that is why we have letters of yoga, towards the volumes of them. And apart from this volume, there are other thousands of letters which have not been published. For example, his letters to Dilip Kumar Roy, there are thousands of them. So like that, we see that there is people are trying to follow that synthesis of yoga, the yoga given in synthesis. But after 1950, there seems to be quite a change. And that change is the second shift. The first one, 1920 to 1950. And in 1950, the mother gives, in 1952 actually, the mother gives a different message. She writes, to follow Sri Aurobindo in the great adventure of his integral yoga, one needed always to be a warrior. Now that he has left us physically, one needs to be a hero. We don't know what it means. But definitely there's a change. A warrior who was fighting the battles of the subtle physical, of the occult world, of his own personal problems, of something that was trying to, we are trying to conquer in our own selves, the weaknesses, the defects, etc. You have to be constantly at war with oneself, with the occult world, with others. So that was there before 1950. So if you read all the letters, you will see people's attempts of self-conquest, self-perfection. But then she says, after 1950, the circumstances changed and one needed to be a hero. So there is a shift from the warrior to the hero. What does it mean? We don't know. A hero who again attempts boldly, tries to really conquer oneself. But here there's not that vigorous violence, warriorship. Because there was something that the occult world perhaps was not all that dangerous. It was to be conquering oneself now. So there's a stage of the hero that comes in. The battle comes down to one's own field. So Mother indicates very clearly that since Sri Aurobindo left his body, the physical body, the shift in the yoga comes to that of a hero. We have seen two changes. 1920 to 1950. And then from 1950 to 1973, this lasted, this period of the hero. But then in 1973, what happened? We know that. The mother left her body. So this is where Nollikanta Gupta, he gives us a new interpretation. He says, at present, when the mother too is no more there, apparently, we seem to be abandoned children. What are we to do or be? Yes, when the mother left her body, there was a great kind of sense of being abandoned. The Aurobindo had gone, mother has gone, and now what are we to do? Whom are we supposed to approach for our difficulties, for our attempts, for our solutions? It is no longer sufficient to be a warrior, not sufficient even to be a hero. What should we be? Something greater than the hero. One must be a yogi. So here, Nollikanta Gupta, Nolida as we say, as we call him, he shifted once again the focus of integral yoga to that of being a yogi. But then he says, the yogi is one who has the divine consciousness or the mother's consciousness. If you find that it is not so easy for one to be a yogi, even if one tries sincerely, I suggest to you another alternative. If that is the definition of a yogi, one who has the divine consciousness or the mother's consciousness, you can very well imagine it's quite nigh impossible for us human beings at present to attain that yogi state. So was it that Nalita is trying to make this yoga more difficult for all of us? Warrior was good enough, hero was good enough of a struggle. But then he knows, Nalita was very clear about that. He says, if you cannot take up this alternative of yogi, he says, I suggest to you another alternative. It is to leap into another dimension, to be a child of the mother. A beautiful thing. From the warrior to the hero to the child. So now we see, since 1973, the emphasis has come upon being a true child of the mother. Now the whole question is, what is to be the child of the mother? We need not be anymore the baby monkey, trying to hold on with our own tapasya, with our own strength, with our own energy, with our own attempts at holding to the divine consciousness. That was a period of the warrior and the hero. But then, the way of baby kitten, of surrender, is the only path that is given to us now. So we see, we are at present too dispersed in consciousness and lack the courage and strength to walk on the razor's edge. So the mother, in all her compassion, has taken us closer to her through her love and charm. You see, what Nalita has indicated is a very, very symbolic and very, very crucial thing. So now the mother has come into the play. And then when the mother comes into play, what happens? As children, what did we do? We always go around the mother for our problems, for our food, for our problems, physical or vital, mental. So we kind of, go around her, as we say, keep holding on to her anchor. And remember, there was a dream of the mother when she was 11 or 13, when she used to go high into the sky and her robe was falling down, and all those people on earth who had problems, misery, suffering, pain, etc., would touch her robe, and the moment they touched her robe, they felt relieved of all the problems and sorrows and pain. So that is the meaning of going around her anchal, going around her robe. So when Nalnida instead is told us that be the children of the mother, what does it mean? It means we have to be holding her anchal, her robe, be close to her consciousness. How to be close to her consciousness? One of the ways, of course, which was given by Lord Krishna when it tells Arjuna towards the end that be my minded, my lover, and my worker. It means a lot. But here we have been told to be children. So as children, what are we supposed to do? How can we be true children of the mother? You now remember the sadhana, tapasya, the path of one's own effort is not given us. We are on the path of the sunlit path where the mother gives us so many of her Mahavakyas. That means the advices, really the help, the way forward. She has given to each of her children in a different way, in a different manner, all that suits the person in his progress. So I have gathered a few of these Mahavakyas only to tell us, which really give us a new attitude and a new attitude towards the mother. How do we approach the mother? Because our way now seems to be only to be in the light, in the circumstances, in the circle around the mother. We have nothing much to do. Well, much is a difficult word, but our focus is to be around her. And all the advices that I've selected, the Mahavakyas, give us the sense of the confidence in the mother. It really ignites in us faith and trust, which are really important in order to love the mother. You see, I know there are many people who say, I cannot love the mother, I have no trust and faith. So, mother slowly built up in the individuals, young and old, from India, from ashram, from outside, whoever approached her, through her simple advices and her blessings and her sweetness and her charm, a trust. So we begin to trust the mother, have confidence in the mother. All this, not only to love the mother, but to begin to surrender to her. Did we not say that to be a child of the mother is to be like a baby kitten, to surrender? So she did everything in order to build in us that confidence and love for the mother. So I'm going to read out some of these Mahavakyas. There are plenty of them. Each one can find his or her own. But I have selected a few which really give us this kind of a spark within us, kind of a fondness for the mother, a kind of a wanting to be oneself surrendered to the mother. The first of the Mahavakyas, this title is given by Sri Aurobindo. You are the mother's child. This is straight away, if you remember this, it means a lot. You see, we are not giving you any steps of how to be a child, how to do this. That's not the how. But if you have this attitude, if you really are remembering this, what is it? You are the mother's child. And Sri Aurobindo writes, you are the mother's child, and the mother's love to her children is without limit. And she bears patiently with the defects of their nature. Try to be the true child of the mother. It is there within you, But your outward mind is occupied by little futile things and too often in a violent fuss over them. So you see, the true child is within. But all that we talk about the ego and the attachment and all that, this is a cloud that comes over. But then we must know that basically we are her children. And then it's the next one. She says, this is from the mother. She's writing to a child, a disciple. Look at the love and the beautiful softness in her words and how they build the faith in the child. Yes, my dear child, I am your true mother who will give birth in you to the true being, the being who is free, peaceful, strong, and happy always, independently of all circumstances. Another one, my dear child, I carry you always in my arms, pressed close to my heart. And I have no doubt that you will become aware of it if you forget the world and concentrate on me. By turning your thoughts towards me, you will feel closer and closer to me, and peace will come to dwell in your heart. This is what Lord Krishna is telling Manmana Bhava. Become mind-minded, closer, thinking of our thoughts directed towards her. You see, it's not the question of self-conquest and disconquest of ego, of anger. That is the kind of a somewhere Sri Aurobindo would say, it's a negative approach to sadhana. Whereas here is a much simpler. That I'm having this manmana bhava mad bhakta, all the time my thoughts are going towards her. This itself will bring us closer to her, as she says. You'll feel closer and closer to me. And then another letter, somebody writes, human contact has done me much harm, but I cannot give up this habit. I have made many efforts to stop all human contacts, but I cannot. I don't know what to do, mother. Let me be open to you and to no one else. Always, always. Give me patience. I think many of us are in this circumstance. We have contacts, and I cannot give up this habit of people and contacts and relations and all that. Mother says, I don't think it would be good for you to live completely retired and turned in on yourself. We can't be ascetic, we cannot withdraw from people. The whole thing is to choose your relationships well. You must choose to enter into relation with those whose contact does not veil my presence. This is the important point which should never be forgotten. All that leaves you away from me in thought and feeling is bad. All that brings you closer to me and gives you the perception and joy of my presence is good. You should judge things in the light of this rule. You will see that it will help you to protect yourselves from many mistakes. There are lot of young people, older people, who have this problem of people and relationships. It's a very simple rule. Just all those people whose contact does not veil my presence cannot be admitted. And all those who contact takes you away from the mother, not acceptable. It's only those who bring you closer to the mother, her presence is acceptable. This is a very simple answer. It's not a law, it's not a spiritual law or a moral law or a religious law, but something you can yourself judge. You may judge it very easily if you are sincere, because we say, well, this person is good for me, this person is all right for me. But what is the sense of good and all right? Is it for your vital need? Is it for your mental need? Is it for your physical need? Or is it that the person helps you to go towards the mother? Or does that person helps you to keep the contact with the mother? Or does he or she disrupt it? So it is this kind of a positive attitude towards this relationship. And then in another letter she would say somebody wanted to be the mother's instrument, because this is also very much talked about by the disciples of Sherman and the mother, that I am the instrument of the mother. Here is a beautiful little note. Mother writes, I'm happy to know that you want to be my instrument. To be able to be my instrument, you must be regular, energetic, courageous, enduring, and always good tempered. What I'm trying to bring out, you see, she's not entering into this kind of a rigorous sadhana or tapasya. A simple psychological attitude, a simple way of looking at things. She says, be regular, energetic, courageous, enduring, and always good tempered. Tempered. That can make you partly the instrument of the mother Sri Aurobindo. And then she would say, as somebody asked the question, what does the divine want of me? Mother writes, he wants that you first find yourself, that with your true being, your psychic being, you master and govern the lower being, and then you will quite naturally take your proper place in the great divine work. So again the same question, that first finding the true being. To find one's own psychic being makes you really the instrument of the divine work in this world. So it is not the question of who you are becoming on the outer world, outer life. So this entire spirituality is not about the social position or the spiritual or this position that you get in work or in companies anywhere. Your wealth, nothing. It is to the extent that you find your psychic being that you are valued. And then one writes very, very frankly, we all want mother's love. But I wonder how many of us truly love the mother? Where indeed do we see one-pointed, ever-sacrificing, never-failing love? Who has love only for the divine? Yes, if you really go deep into the question, it's very true. Do we really love the mother? Or is it only a kind of an image of the mother we gather and start loving that image? Mother answers, it does not mean that there is no love, but the love is mixed and covered with egoism, demand, and vital movements. You see, there's a spark of love for the divine, but it's mostly this vital covering on the divine movement and egoism. That means I want to have this kind of a success, I want to have this kind of an image, I want to have this kind of a proof. And then that you demand from the mother, from the divine, from Sri Aurobindo, from whatever you want to worship to. So our spark of love for the divine is covered more by egoism and by vital demands. Then what happens? We get disappointed, disillusioned, saying the mother doesn't love me, and the Sri Aurobindo, he doesn't love me, and the divine doesn't love me because he has not fulfilled my demands, my vital demands, my mental demands. So at least that is the case with many. There are some, of course, who have no love at all, or love, if it can be called so, only for what they get. One or two who love truly. But in a great many, there's a psychic spark hidden in much smoke. The smoke has to be got rid of so that the spark may have a chance of growing into a blaze. So this is what we call the purification, etc., and all that we speak of in yoga, is this smoke. But our focus must be to realize the psychic. How to remove the smoke is also not through one's own effort. It cannot be done. The smoke is occult. The smoke is cosmic. The smoke is too universal, too thick. So again, it is the mother who can do that. That's what we'll see later on. But then there's a very, very touching letter. You see how much the mother not only takes care of you emotionally and vitally and mentally, but look at that on the physical level. She writes, I've been informed from the dining room that you did not eat either yesterday evening or the whole day today. Why? If you are sick, you must take care of. I should send the doctor to you. But if you are not sick, you must eat. You must eat. You do not eat regularly. But if you are sick, you must eat. I'm sorry. If you are not sick, you must eat. You do not eat regularly. Your brain will waste away and you will lose your intelligence. If you do not eat regularly, your brain will waste away and you will lose your intelligence. And look at the beautiful note. It grieves me when you do not eat regularly. Do you want to grieve your mother who loves you and wants only your own good? See this gesture, how much she has come down to the child level. And she says, it grieves me when you do not eat regularly. That's the most beautiful touch of love, the touch of intense love. Taking care of a child who is not eating regularly. That was the first one. You are the mother's child. And then in some other place, Aurobindo writes that the second one, Mahavakyas, would say is, in the words of Aurobindo, the mother loves me and I am the mother's. It's a great confidence builder. Do not think whether people agree with you or do not agree with you, or whether you are good or bad. But think only that the mother loves me and I am the mother's. If you base your life on that thought, everything will soon become easy. Extraordinary advice. A simple belief, a simple trust that the mother loves me and I am the mother's. That the mother loves me and I am the mother's. So what does it mean? So if you are constantly having this kind of an emotion, this kind of a belief, this kind of a thought, he says that very thought, everything will soon become easy. That all that we think of yoga sadhana and conquest of this, conquest of that, we cannot do. It's highly impossible. The Sri Aurobindo has given us by the sunlit path a shortcut. Simply, whenever the problems come, you say, I am the mother's. The mother loves me and I'm the mother's. It's a kind of a japa. It's a kind of an attitude. It's kind of a constant thinking. Nothing will happen to me. Nothing, whatever happens, I'm the mother's child. That's what is the beautiful thing. And then the third one, very, very important again, as each of these Mahavakyas is, I'm with you. The mother says, I'm with you. And somebody asks the question, what does it mean? Mother replies, I'm with you because I'm you, or you are me. So this is that absolute Vedanta, when the divine has become each one of these individuals, and each one of these individuals is part of the Supreme Divine. But taking away the philosophy, she's directly speaking to the child and saying, I'm with you because I'm you or you are in me. Or you are me, not in me, you are me. I'm with you, that signifies a world of things. Because I'm with you on all levels, on all planes, from the Supreme Consciousness down to my most physical consciousness. Then she goes on to explain, but apart from that, there's a special personal tie between you and me. It's not just you means that one particular person, it's general to each one of us who have turned to the mother. There is a special personal tie between you and me, between all who have turned to the teaching of Sri Aurobindo and myself. And it is well understood. Distance does not count here. You may be in France, you may be at the other end of the world or in Puducherry. This tie is always true and living. And each time there comes a call, each time there's a need for me to know so that I may send out a force, an inspiration, a protection, or anything. A sort of message comes to me all of a sudden and I do the needful. Because of this special outline connection between the individual sadhak, she said, between all those who have turned to the teaching of Sri Aurobindo and myself. So there is a complete, a regular contact, a hotline connection. So the distance doesn't matter. So whenever there's a call that comes to me, she says, I do the needful because there is this hotline connection. With those whom I have accepted as disciples, to whom I have said yes, there's more than a tie. There's an emanation of me. This is difference. The first one is those who have turned to the teachings. Those who love the teachings and maybe reading the philosophy and psychology. But those whom she says I've accepted as disciples, there's an emanation that's sent out from her. This emanation warns me whenever it is necessary and tells me what is happening. This emanation warns me, and then she says, indeed, I receive intimations constantly, but all are recorded in my active memory. I'm sorry. Not all are recorded in my active memory. I would be flooded. The physical consciousness acts like a filter. Things are recorded on a subtle plane. They are there in a latent state, something like a piece of music that is recorded without being played. And when I need to know with my physical consciousness, I make contact with this subtle physical plane, and the disc begins to turn. This is so beautiful that we can call all our prayers, everything gets transmitted to her. But she responds later because she is not in the active physical consciousness when she was in the body. But she says, well, whatever I wanted to know, she would open that and then the messages would come back to her. And this tie between you and me is never cut. There are people who have long ago left the ashram in a state of revolt. And yet I keep myself informed of them. I attend to them. You are never abandoned. So let's not think that I'm a sinner, I'm a bad person, I've done this and mother has abandoned me. That's an old religious thought. It doesn't happen in spirituality. And this is the most magnificent declaration. She says, in truth, I hold myself responsible for everyone, even for those whom I have met only for 1 second in my life. This is a guarantee. This is a tie. What Lord Krishna had said the same thing. If you turn around, he says, Master, I'll take care of you. But here Mother is reiterating, I hold myself responsible for everyone, even for those whom I have met only for 1 second in my life. This is not a mere phrase, she explains. Not simply words. It's a fact. I'm with you in a very concrete manner, and they who have a subtle vision can see me. Another one, maybe the third or fourth Mahavakya. In order to be always near me really and effectively, you must become more and more sincere, open and frank towards me. Cast away all dissimulation and decide to do nothing that you could not tell me immediately. Do only what you could do before me without feeling embarrassed. Say only what you could repeat to me without difficulty. Are the most marvelous guidelines. Do only what you could do before me without feeling embarrassed. You see, because she's near us, she's close to us. So we can do anything and everything which you can do right in sitting in front of her in her own presence. And say only what you could repeat to me without difficulty. So if there's any hesitation, no, this I cannot do in front of the mother, this I cannot tell the mother, that is what really limits us and stops us. It becomes insincerity, something going wrong. So she has given a beautiful guideline that do only what you could do before me. And of course, there's another Mahavakya which was given to Champaglaji in one of his birthday messages. Be simple, be happy, remain quiet. Do your work as well as you can. Keep yourself always open towards me. This is all that is asked from you. Magnificent spiritual guide. Really a Mahavakya. You see how basic it is. Be simple, be happy. But again, be happy means not in the vital sense or indulging in things else. But be happy in the sense of what you said before, that in your happiness, do only what you could do before me. So it really bars us from all kinds of nonsense, all kinds of indulgences. So be simple, be happy, remain quiet, uninvolved, no reactions, no vital reaction, no mental reaction, no resistances. Try to be as quiet and calm in every circumstance. And then simple, do yourself, keep yourself always open to me and do your work as well as you can. So it is not this work or that work in Puducherry or in Bombay or in London, anywhere, wherever you are, whatever work you're doing, do it well. And doing well involves a lot of sincerity, putting in all the effort. And then we have one more, one of the most famous ones, which all of you must be expecting. The Mahavakyas of Surrender. This is marvelous. You must have read many definitions of surrender from other Aurobindo and from other yogis. Here is one, which is right in the sense of the integral yoga and sunlit path. The master writes, Aurobindo writes, all can be done by the divine. The heart and nature purified, the inner consciousness awakened, the veils removed. You see, all the question of, be egoless, have detachment, be equanimous, be equality, all the qualities that we have been discussing, or that we discuss normally when we speak of integral yoga. Aurobindo is going straight. This is all can be done. Nature purified, inner consciousness awakened, the veils removed, all the purification, all the difficulties done. If one gives oneself to the divine with trust and confidence, and if one cannot do so fully at once, yet the more one does, the more the inner help and guidance come, and the experience of the divine grows within. If the questioning mind becomes less active and humility and the will to surrender grow, this ought to be perfectly possible. No other strength and tapasya than needed but this alone. Almost to say this is the last word. That is only the divine who can purify us, can open up our inner being, the veils removed, if only we can give ourselves with trust and confidence to the divine. And of course, he is aware that you cannot do it all at once. He said, doesn't matter, start slowly, you will grow into that. But just that keep that humility and the will to surrender, let it continue, let it be continuously there. And then a very beautiful touch, it says, for such a taking up involves one's putting oneself in the divine, in the hands of the divine, rather than relying on one's own efforts alone. And this implies one's putting one's trust and confidence in the divine. This is the difference. The Sri Aurobindo himself is saying that this, for such a taking up, involves putting oneself in the hands rather than relying on one's own effort. The relying on one's own effort is that old yoga, as we said, the monkey, the baby monkey. So it is not the tapasya that we are asked to do. We're just asked to do that simple thing that we have to, with confidence and trust, give progressively to the divine. And lovely sentence, he says, it is in fact the principle of sadhana that I myself followed. And it is the central process of yoga as I envisage it. This is Sri Aurobindo himself writing. So he has also followed this question of surrender. In all his Saptachatushya by which he conquered all that, there must have been this kind of a surrender to the Lord. And the mother, all that she has written in the agenda, in most of the things that she says all the time, let thy will be done, let thy will be done, let thy will be done. So both Sri Aurobindo and the mother always depended on the strength and the consciousness of the higher being, higher reality, higher divinity. And then the last one, was most often you must have heard about this, remember and offer. Well, that is a thing that we all know. We have all heard, not know. Knowing comes only when we practice. But at least book knowledge we have had. We have read many definitions. And here is what Sri Aurobindo writes. This, in short, is the demand made on us, that we should turn our whole life into a conscious sacrifice. So this is the essence of the Sunlight path. Surrender, that is, gradually it comes. But then, this question of surrender, when it comes gradually, we have to remember the stages of surrender. You see, surrender could be passive. Saying, oh, the mother will do everything, the divine will do, I keep doing myself, what I want to do. But there's a higher level, more active, more dynamic level of surrender is called offering. When you offer your activities, as we said, remember and offer, this is a kind of a higher step of surrender where you're consciously remembering that act, that emotion, that thought, that act, that vital longing and all that. You're consciously giving to her, giving at the feet of the mother, whatever it means for purification, for enjoyment, for all that is immaterial. But surrender can be passive, so the active surrender is offering. Offering becomes an act of conscious giving. And so Sri Aurobindo says, every moment and every movement of our being is to be resolved into a continuous and a devoted self-giving to the eternal. See the words? It must be a continuous and devoted self-giving to the eternal. Each moment and every movement. Beautiful. This is a very beautiful phrase. Each moment and every movement must be offered. All our actions, not less the smallest and most ordinary and trifling than the greatest and most uncommon and noble, must be performed as consecrated acts. This is the third level. Surrender, offering, consecration or dedication. It's not sufficient to passively surrender. One thing is, secondly, the offering is fine. But then there's a third level. They must be performed as consecrated acts. So in this consecration, this entire being is involved. The mental, the vital, the physical, whatever it is. So the highest level of surrender is that of consecration and dedication. So you dedicate, you consecrate all your thoughts in actions, and then it says, nothing is traveling. You should not think that washing the basin or washing the room or doing the prime minister or being an author, being a corporate rich man is different. Nothing. There's nothing small in God's eyes. Our individualized nature must live in the single consciousness of an inner and outer movement dedicated to something that is beyond us and greater than our ego. No matter what the gift and to whom it is presented by us, there must be a consciousness in the act that we are presenting it to the one divine being in all beings. So here we call upon the Mother and Sri Aurobindo. Sri Aurobindo is writing impersonally that we must have the surrender, then the question of offering, and then the higher level of dedication to a higher being. To call it something, you call it this God or that doesn't matter. But this is what is really the true spiritual attitude. And then the last question that I'd like to read out, last quotation. This is taken from Nollikanta Gupta's writing. It's called a vision. The one that he perhaps got after the passing away of the mother in the physical. The vision, the mother says, just see, look at me. I'm here, come back in my new body, divine, transformed, and glorious. And I'm the same mother, still human. Do not worry. Do not be concerned about your own self. Now, this is a sentence that I want all of us to understand. Do not be concerned about your own self, your progress and realization, not about others. So this entire sadhana that I have to do this, I have to conquer this, I have to purify this, I have to reject this, don't bother about your progress or realization. I'm here, look at me, gaze into me, enter into me wholly, merge into my being, lose yourself into my love with your love. You will see all problems solved, everything done. You see, even this question of realization, advancement, achievement in spirituality, in outer life, just forget about all that. He just says, I'm here, look at me, gaze into me, enter into me wholly, merge into my being, lose yourself into my love with your love. You will see all problems solved, everything done. And the last beautiful line, forget all else. So forget the world. Remember me alone. Be one with me, with my love. This is the meaning of the sunlit path. These are the beautiful Mahavakyas. And the last one, as I always remember Lord Krishna when he says, Manmanava Madbhakta Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru. Mahasucha, he says. The same guarantee. She says, remember me alone. Not the world, not people, not relations, not this positions, nothing. Be one with me, identify yourself with me, with my love. So, Mother, we have to identify with her love. So, that is to be the true children. Children spontaneously love, they do not calculate. So, they depend, they give up everything to their parents, to their mother. And those are the Mahavakyas which tell us nothing but how to surrender more and more entirely. So this is not doing yoga, but this is only being children of the mother, true children of the mother. So these are the Mahavakyas that are inspiring, build up confidence, and we can really start moving on the path of surrender, surrendering to the mother. I've selected a few of these, which were really close to my heart through my life. Some of which we could practice, some which we could not. But this is the beauty of Sri Aurobindo Mother. So we have had 3 stages from 1920 to 1950, 1950 to 1973, and from 1973 onwards, we have to become the children of the Mother. The friends, Sri Aurobindo's yoga, integral yoga, yoga of self-perfection, yoga of transformation, these are all big things for me, big words for me, I don't understand. Because it's not possible for me as an individual to follow all that. For me, it's easier to hold the robe of the mother and be close to her as much as possible in my thought, in my emotions, in my body. That's the lesson that I've learned in this life. Thank you so much.